This week on Unglossy.
Between music streaming platforms, content streaming platforms, digital streaming platforms. I mean, it's all a matter of time, right? And we're vying for the attention of the consumer. We're four guys, on a Zoom, right? And as much as we may want to consume everything, let's be honest, we can't.
From the top.
Yeah.
I'm Tom Frank.
I'm Mickey Fax.
And I'm Jeffrey Sledge.
Welcome to Unglossy, decoding brand and culture. I'm Tom Frank, partner and chief creative officer at Merit Creative. This is Mickey Fax, hip-hop artist and founder and CEO of Pendulum Inc. And that is Jeffrey Sledge, a seasoned music industry veteran who has worked with some of the biggest artists in the business. We're here to explore the moments of vulnerability, pivotal decisions, and creative sparks that fuel the relationship between brand and culture. Get ready for a thought-provoking journey into the heart and soul of branding, the unscripted, unfiltered, and truly unglossy truth. Hey, we got a good one today.
Yeah.
I enjoyed this conversation a lot.
Listen,
Yeah.
man. Chris is he's a pioneer, man, legend in the music industry.
Chris
Great
Atlas.
to kind of have him here, man. That was crazy, man. Crazy.
Hey,
man.
Mickey, I got a question for you though. I got a question that popped in my head when we were talking about Chris. You told the story of meeting Lupe and doing the first concert in Tokyo.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You're not the inspiration behind the song Paris Tokyo, where he picks up the phone and one of his guys said, "Let's go to Tokyo and make some bread."
No. So Paris and Tokyo was on that project that he played for us at Cornerstone. So no.
So you were not
so
the inspiration. I thought I had figured something out right then and there.
No. But shout out to Cornerstone, man. It was a great time.
Yeah. I'm glad we got to mention Cornerstone because it was an important part of the music business for the time it was around. It really meant a lot.
Yeah.
All the labels used it. Like all of them used it.
And it was bigger than music, though, which I didn't realize. I mean, he talked a little bit about a lot of other projects that were music adjacent, but were even bigger. Which
they did branding.
I was blown away by this guy. I mean, love
and
it.
the parties, man. You can't forget about those parties.
The party. I totally forgot about it. I mean, they said parties all the time in the office. Even if you didn't have a party, I'd come up there sometime and it would just be like beer and stuff. You know, they had all these brands sending them stuff all the time.
Yeah, that's true.
It was always stuff in the office like liquor or Xboxes or soda, whatever. It was just the office was it was damn near like a warehouse. Like I'm not talking about size wise. I'm saying it was just that much stuff in there from Cornerstone.
Yeah. That's the great thing about marketing. You got to experience whatever you're marketing.
Exactly. You got to send you some cases or something, you know?
Yeah.
So you've experienced that, Tom. You've experienced cases of product and great, things like that.
I used to do all the marketing for the Girl Scouts of America, and we would have more Girl Scout cookies sitting in this office than you could possibly imagine. But yeah, some liquor brands, a lot of food brands, right? I mean, I didn't buy maple syrup for about 10 years because we had a great maple syrup client, and I think I just drained the last bottle. I'm out. I haven't worked with them in probably 5 years.
Wow.
I stored up a lot of maple syrup.
Shout out to how you get that free stuff. Like I remember people coming up to the label all the time. They come up to the label all the time and just giving people, we always had CDs around because that was what we did. So you'd be like, yo, here's the new Backstreet Boys, or here's the new Britney or the new R. Kelly or whatever it was. And people would act like you gave them like a gold bar. And we'd have drawers full of that stuff. It would be nothing. They'd be like, oh my God, can I get one of those too?
Hey, yo, I took a lot of stuff because at that moment, at that time, Jive was underneath Sony.
Yeah.
So all of the Michael Jackson stuff, oh my gosh, I snatched everything when I would go up there. You kidding me? I still got some. I got some crazy Michael Jackson stuff and some Prince stuff because Prince was there too.
Yeah, no, Prince and Warner. Prince and Warner Brothers.
He's on
Prince is Warner Brothers.
You must have been walking into multiple offices grabbing stuff.
He probably was.
I was a demon.
Hey, I'll say this about Chris to bring it back around. I loved hearing about his journey though, from working with big companies to kind of going out on his own, because I felt like it was very parallel. I've been in that same experience. I've worked for a lot of big companies. Now I'm out on my own. and you definitely start to see things a little differently, but it's also inspirational again. You're like back to the cool work that you want to do. And I don't know. I love that his journey that he went through. And now that he's at Fat Beats, I can't wait to talk to him. I got lots of ideas. Ideas about the storefront.
He's gonna do really well over there.
He's gonna do very well.
Yeah, I mean, he already is. He started off with Common and Pete Rock. I mean,
that's crazy.
That's crazy. The first joint he did, so it's lit now. You know, it's lit.
Yeah, that is great. That is unbelievable.
Yeah.
All right, let's dive in. Enjoy our conversation with Chris Atlas.
Spicky.
Unglossy is brought to you by Merit Creative. Looking to skyrocket your business's visibility and drive growth? At Merit Creative, we solve your brand and marketing woes. With big ideas, decades of experience, and innovative solutions, we'll draw in your target audience and keep them hooked. Remember, creativity is key to success. Partner with Merit Creative and unlock your brand's potential. Learn more at meritcreative.com. And now, back to the show. All right, fellas, we are honored to be joined by a true leader in his field whose expertise has shaped the career of numerous artists and transformed the landscape of music marketing. Our guest today is none other than Chris Atlas, a seasoned music industry executive with over 2 decades of experience.
3.
Chris has held key positions at major labels like Warner Records, Def Jam, Tommy Boy Records, Cornerstone, Promotion, and currently is the president of Fat Beats, a renowned distributor and retail brand in the music world. Chris has been instrumental in transforming the careers of numerous artists and has a wealth of knowledge about the ever-evolving music industry. Today, we'll be discussing his journey, the challenges and the opportunities in the music business, and his vision, the future of Fat Beats. Welcome. How you doing?
Man, I'm great.
That was a dope intro word.
But you forgot the most important thing in my bio.
Please tell me.
I'm a friend of Jeff Sledge.
Oh, this dude. That's my guy right there.
That's my brother.
One of the only music people I really like.
Wow, that's big.
There you go.
Yeah. But I wanted to have Chris on here because he's one of the last people from my era that's inside. Well, you're kind of outside now, but you're still kind of you're obviously really in the mix. And he can also discuss.
Yeah, I'm
inside out, exactly. And he can also really discuss like the changes of the music business. But we're going to start with his journey. But I just think it's real important to have him on here because there's a lot of people that he can inspire and that he's helped out a lot along the way.
So let's start there. Where does the love of music come from?
Oh man, the love of music, it actually comes from elementary school, high school. I used to DJ. I used to have my own rap group, which I don't talk about.
What was the name of the group? I think, come on, chill.
I ain't putting that out.
Come on.
I ain't putting that out.
Give us a quick 8. Just give us a quick 8. Can I get 8 bars?
Something. We need it.
But listen, I think like most young people from the Bronx, we all had our aspirations, of either being an artist, rapping, performing, right? And I was no exception, right? And music has always been important in my family. Little known fact, my cousin by blood is actually Mr. Ness, Scorpio from Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5. And again, I think hip hop has always just kind of been rooted, in me just from, adolescence. So as I, grew up and realized, you know what, I'm not going to be an artist. You know what I mean? I went to the business side, and, fortunately it's a side that has led me on, almost 30 plus year career of just growth, opportunity, hard work, hustle, pain, strife, success, friendships, all of the above, but again, truly blessed to work in music and man, I think the stories and history that I have, is kind of reflective of me still being here.
So tell me a quick question, because I just don't know if you ever told me this. How did you get the first job?
Well, I had a period in college, right? And this was when I was in City College, where I had a few internships. And, I interned at EMI, interned at Giant Records. But my real break Hey, remember that one, right? My real break was when I got the internship at Tommy Boy, and that was 1995, and I was doing a compilation series called Jock Rock Jock Jams, which at that time, and Sledge, you remember this, like those compilations were like double
Yeah.
platinum. MTV Party to Go, Jock Rock Jock
Yep.
Jams. So
I remember those.
and it was like before streaming and before now and before, you know, all of those things, right? So those compilations were a big revenue driver
Mm-hmm.
for Tommy Boy. And but it for me it was like a way to get in the door. And once I was in the door, I just, you know, I went crazy relative to um getting a position doing college radio promotion, which at that time, you know, in the mid '90s, college
Big.
radio was like as as big as mix show
Yep.
radio, and you
Yep.
know, any rotation. So, and Tommy Boy, just given the nature of the label, college radio was very important. So that was like the thing that really kind of put me on the path. And you know, being that Tommy Boy, I kind of grew within the ranks from college radio to mix show radio to I did A&R at one point, and I had my own venture via Tommy Boy called Tommy Boy Black Label, which was an idea that I had came up with relative to there was a period where Tommy Boy was very mainstream, and Tommy Boy Black Label was focused on independent, you know, underground hip hop. So it was a way to kind of balance out the roster from the, you know, the mainstream acts that Tommy Boy had become, you know, famous for at that time.
Who was on Black? What artists?
Defari, Jig
Jig
Masters,
Masters.
Natural Elements, Self Scientific, Gemini, the Gifted One. You
Yeah.
know, we were putting out singles. We put out singles, and you know, certain acts got, you know, to the level where we put out a couple albums. You know,
Okay.
so but you know, we had quite a few acts. Cover, man, we had a few acts on Black
Okay.
Label.
Shout out to A Butter from Natural Elements.
Yeah. Shout out to those guys. They still doing their thing too. They still doing their thing. And then Jeff, that was around the time where we linked up because of course you was at
Yeah.
Jive, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and and Tommy Boy and Jive, like they were
They were,
like, you
yeah, they were
know,
kind of, yeah,
rivals,
exactly, like rivals that kind of
you know,
started around the same time, and
you know, yeah,
trying to poach people from each other and all that shit. Y'all had a dope staff though. You had Dante, you had Monica Lynch, you had Ian. You had a
yeah,
great staff over there.
Albie,
Yeah,
Ian,
Albie. You had
yeah,
a great staff over there.
yeah,
Great staff.
Fat Man
Yeah,
Scoop, you
Scoop.
know,
We on the back of the source
yeah,
every month. Yeah, y'all had y'all was
every
popping.
month,
And you had great artists too. De La,
yeah,
Tifa,
oh
Naughty.
yeah, De La, House of
Yeah.
Pain, you know, Coolio, man, Coolio was, you know,
Oh,
was huge, you know what I'm
you
saying?
had Coolio?
Yeah, man, Coolio was on Tommy Boy, you know,
That's one of my
um,
all-time favorites right there.
yeah, and then you know we had, you know, Tommy Boy had some successful ventures via Penalty and Neil
That's right,
Levine with
Nori.
Capone
Mhm.
Noriega, you know, so
yeah.
you know, we definitely had a great
Yeah,
run with Tommy
they
Boy.
was doing y'all did your thing over there, man. Y'all definitely did your thing.
What happened to Tommy?
I mean, I think it's like all things relative to the company was eventually, you know, absorbed and sold to Warner Music Group, right?
Oh,
And
okay.
they had that period where, you know, Warner had the catalog. There were certain acts that Warner kind of looked at relative to within the group. Okay, who's going to Elektra, or who's going to Atlantic, or who's going where? You know what I mean? And you know, like all things, I mean, it had a great run, but you know, at that time, which was when I left Tommy Boy, I think it was like 2000, 2001. The, you know, the business was going through a change relative to Napster and what Napster was doing to the business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it was, I mean, Jeff, you remember this. It was like it wasn't a good
It was a
period. You know what I
terrible
mean?
period.
Because the piracy that was happening, you know, just the indecisiveness rather relative to what commercial retail was going to look like, you know,
Mhm.
and you know, it just folded into Warner Music Group, and you know, luckily, great to say, you know, Tom Silverman eventually did get Tommy Boy back. Reservoir has Tommy Boy's catalog now, thus, De La being able to kind of free themselves and get their music back up on streaming. So, all in all, it turned out to be a happy ending, I think, relative to where the company was and how it started to the long history and just now where it is relative to, I think they're doing a great job in terms of just kind of keeping the catalog and the legacy of Tommy Boy alive via Reservoir, and then those acts that have been able to get their music back are benefiting from it. And De La is definitely, one of those examples.
I always say, I don't say none of us, but most of us didn't know at the time, like, about technology to that level. Like what the label should have done, in my opinion, with Napster is, instead of try to kill it, they should have put Sean Fannin on a plane and said, "Come in this office and explain what this shit is." And who knows what that would have turned into. But the fact that they tried to kill it, you said, caused all that chaos, and it ended up being what music business is anyway.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
But everybody was just scared of him, so they was just like, "We gotta sue this guy, get rid of this guy. He's giving our music away for free," instead of explaining what he was doing and how that could have, benefited the labels.
Did he create MP3s?
He created file sharing, which is basically MP3s.
Yeah, because I don't, I was freshly graduated from high school, and I remember temping at an agency called, I guess they're still open, PC Magazine.
Mm.
Oh yeah,
and they were right on 28th Street and Park Avenue. And they had I was in the mailroom, and they had a computer in there, and I was introduced to Napster through them in the year 2000. And the file sharing, like, I had never seen anything like this before. And I'm guessing it had, it was unbelievable. Like, all kind of audio was available to me at the snap of a finger. Like freestyles that I had wanted, songs, rare songs, all of these things were available to me. And I was in a company, so the downloading wasn't what you would experience if you did it at home.
Yeah, slow.
So it was really quickly. But I had never seen an MP3 before that. Before that, it was just CDs or tapes. But it was really CDs at that time.
Yeah.
So would you say, though, that Napster era, right, that threw everybody into a loop, how does that compare to then what's happening now with streaming? Or is that comparable? I mean, because it seems like it's the same kind of up in the air. Like, how are artists really making money?
Well, I mean, again, I think Napster and that period threw labels in a loop. And again, to Jeff's point, rather than embracing the technology, labels were trying to shut it down, right? And it actually didn't stop piracy. It didn't stop bootlegging. It didn't stop, any of the things that, in hindsight, people were trying to get it to do. If anything, it just amplified it. And other companies kind of popped up that were doing the same thing. So that created a period where there was a scramble. We got to figure this out. We got to figure out how to monetize in different ways, which ushered in other conversations relative to 360 and, just other aspects of strategic marketing and branding opportunities relative to how labels could, help the bottom line, but then also try to figure out other ways to, make up for some of that revenue that was they were losing relative to just physical market, deteriorating, and you see it, or you saw it relative to the diminishing of the physical retail accounts, both CD and vinyl stores. And I think the difference with it now, and some of this may be to the hindsight of what Napster in that period was, is that the ownership and the aspect that labels have relative to streaming and the partnership with streaming, from a label perspective, kind of balances out some of the revenue. But when you think about the actual percentage of it relative to streaming, it's minuscule compared to what the revenue was in terms of actually the physical sale. that labels and artists were able to actually monetize against, right?
Yeah.
So I think part of the benefit again is like, okay, we have the access, we have a way to actually revitalize and keep music relevant and to the masses in volume, but the financial aspect of what that volume is still hasn't caught up to where the heydays of the record business used to be.
It's never going to go back, right? I mean, that you're never
No,
going to see that heyday ever again.
no, you won't. I don't think you'll see that, because again, it's just not only technology keeps evolving, but the volume of artists, it keeps accelerating, right?
Yeah.
So, and with the volume of artists increasing, the shelf life per artist is decreasing.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Because there's just so much content, to absorb. And, not to say it were simpler times is just an easy way to put it, right? But there weren't as many options relative to how we're vying for people's attention, right? There's so between uh, music streaming platforms, content streaming platforms, digital streaming platforms. I mean, it's all a matter of time, right? And we're vying for the attention of the consumer, where we're four guys, on a Zoom, right? And as much as we may want to consume everything,
You
let's
just
be
can't.
honest, we can't.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So
Not even
it's
close.
not even close, right? So it's really comes down to, like, one, your effectiveness in terms of how you can penetrate, cut through, right, and clear the noise, if you will, so that you're at the head of the class, if you will.
So how has that happened? You've been in this industry for a long time, right? Your approach to marketing and getting artists out there has, I assume, dramatically changed from when you first started to today. Like what's the evolution of that change? Like how are you breaking through?
I mean, my evolution as a marketer is always reflective of the climate and the market, and utilizing the whether it's tech, whether it's the capabilities that are at my disposal, right? And I feel like when it was the 90s, 2000s, right? And Jeff can attest to this, like, it took us a minute to read a record, right? Because we had to talk to the
Mhm.
DJs, we had to see how it resonated per market, we had
Talk to the
to,
retailers.
in some cases, talk to the retailers, some cases go to the market, you know what I mean? And see it, versus now with technology and the benefits of social media and streaming, and you can see it like that. You know what I mean? You could see it, much quicker. So how you utilize that, you know what I mean, is important, right? But I think the one thing that's always been important for me is the level of quality with that artist or with that brand, or particularly just speaking on the artist side, right? The point of view, the perspective, the quality. And quality, again, is all relative to point of view, right? But in understanding what the artist's voice is, who their audience is, and who they're speaking to, right? And to me, that's the measure of how you can, create success, right? Where I've had the opportunity to work with artists like that are groundbreaking, critically acclaimed, right? To artists that are um SoundCloud hits or SoundCloud waves, you know what I mean? But the one thing that resonated was there was a clear perspective, there was a clear voice, right? And there was a clear consumer that those artists were speaking to. And the level of success is all relative. Some did gold, some did platinum, some did multi-platinum, right? But there was a level of what the music was, the perspective that the artist was trying to put out there in the marketplace, and then how we effectively market it around that.
That's what I find harder today, is like finding artists, like you said, that have that perspective and like genuinely have that perspective, as opposed to putting out shit because that's what they think is hot. It's like, okay, I'm putting this out because this kind of sounds like Lil Baby, or this kind of sounds like Gunner, or whoever it may be, and this will get me on, as opposed to like I'm putting out I'm making music because this is how I feel and this is what I'm trying to say. We have that conversation with artists nowadays and be like, so what are you trying to? What are you really trying to say with your music? They don't really be saying. They don't know. They're like, I don't know. Must be hot. It must be hot. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, bro, but like, but the ones that rise above, like you said, whether it be any genre, whether it be Billie Eilish or Future or Anderson .Paak, whoever it is, they all have a perspective that they have, and it's kind of like nobody else's perspective. It's their thing, and it's hard to get that across nowadays. Like you said, so much content, everybody just trying to get on. There's no gatekeep. There's no gatekeepers no more either. There's not many gatekeepers.
I mean, is that tough though? Like from when you think about marketing strategy, right? You got to balance, what the vision and what the artist is trying to do, but also what breaks through, right? From a marketing perspective. How do you balance the two, right? Because you might have an artist who might be way out here, but you're trying to market them in a way to have success. Is there a balance there, or how do you deal with that?
I mean, I think part of that balance comes from the understanding between the artist and or the label in terms of what's our long-term goal with this, right? And I think that whenever I speak to artists or labels or partners, I'm always like, listen, this is a marathon and not a sprint, right? And you have to understand that from day one. Yep. And you may be in a situation where you get an overnight success and it's rocking, which most labels want that. Most artists want that, right? But the reality of it is it takes time, right? It takes time, to really even penetrate and have a level of success, that is of the volumes that is substantial. And even those artists where you think they were fly by night and where did they come from? They weren't really fly by night. You know what I mean? And there's a number of those SoundCloud artists, and I use that genre in particular because we all know that was a period where it looked like, where did these guys come from? And they were everywhere, and it was explosive. But they were in their own underbelly, right? And then when that wave moved, it moved, and everybody was on fire. You know what I mean? And to me, I think that's why we always have these conversations of, oh, hip hop is dead and hip hop is this, and I never feel like hip hop is dead. I always feel like hip hop is always going to continue to evolve, right? Because it evolves with the market, it evolves with the listeners, with the kids. You know what I mean? And it may be in a lull, right? And Jeff, you can attest to this. We've always seen hip hop have periods of lulls, right? And that's when the true artists that are about their creativity and their artistry have an opportunity to shine. And I almost feel like we're in that period now where it's almost like, okay, streaming isn't what it was for a lot of hip hop acts, right? Not saying there aren't success, and there's big names out there, right? But just in general, right? And part of that, I think, is reflective of there's a creative evolution, that's happening, right, relative to whether there's a new sound that's going to emerge, whether there's an old school wave and movement that's happening, and we're seeing a lot of our OG and veteran acts, dropping great product, and putting the emphasis on artistry. And I think that there's an awareness, from the younger generation on that, which I think will inspire, whatever that next trend, in music is going to be.
I agree. I think, like you said, we've always seen lulls, and we always got the hip hop is dead people. But I think the hip hop is dead people, for the most part, they stop evolving, and that's cool because life happens. So you might be like, I'm not moving past 2006. That was my era. 50 Cent and them niggas, and that's what I'm. That's it. That's it for me. So anything comes after that is garbage. I don't like this young shit. I don't like these mumble rappers. And then it just kind of, you either keep going with it or you kind of just get off the train right there and you say it's dead, but it's because it's dead to you. But it's not dead. It's just dead to you. You know what I'm saying? But people keep growing,
Yeah.
and like, you know, Ice Spice is like in 5 years, people be like, "That's old now." It just keeps evolving. It keeps growing. It
Yep.
keeps evolving. You know.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
You would say that you really think hip hop is at a lull right now? Like, I guess there's two ways to look at that. There's the music side of it, but then there is just the general popularity. Like before we started recording, we were talking about Snoop at the Olympics. And I think hip hop and some of the representatives of hip hop are at an all-time high right now in terms of popularity, in terms of being on mainstream channels. I mean, I think we're at an absolute height right now when you look at it from that perspective, not necessarily the new music that's coming out.
When I say lull, I'm talking in terms of the artistry aspect of it, you know,
The music, the pure music side of it.
the music aspect of it, not the popularity, you know,
Okay.
aspect of it, because I think that hip hop is as popular as it, you know, can be. And to your point, right? There's several hip hop artists that are still on major brands and shows and tours and opportunities, right? But I think that when you look across the board in terms of the footprint that hip hop sales is having in general, right?
Mm.
It's at a
Mm-hmm.
low. And I'm not talking about Drake and Kendrick and the superstars, right? You know, because the superstars are superstars and they are always going to do what they do. I'm talking about the volume in at which the a lot of the core and developing acts that, you know, used to dominate the chart had
Yeah.
presence. That, you know, is at a lull, and I think that that's reflective of going from a single format to albums, going to what people are looking for relative to, um, is it based on singles or is there a real album demand, you know, and also going back to how the creative and the narrative in terms of some of the hip hop artists is going to continue to evolve. Like, what's the next trend? I mean, if we had a crystal ball, you know what I mean, we'd all be billionaires relative to what the next trend is, you know, in hip hop. I don't think anyone can kind of predict it until you actually see it and it
Mm-hmm.
emerges.
Well, I want to talk about I want to swing back a bit more to the career stuff. So after Tommy Boy, you went to Cornerstone, correct?
Yeah.
Yes. So
Yeah.
what was that
Um,
transition like? And tell us about Cornerstone, because it
well,
doesn't exist anymore. People might not know. And rest in peace to the founder of it, Rob Stone, who passed away fairly recently. But
yeah, rest in peace to
yeah,
Rob.
it was a very important thing.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Cornerstone at that time, and this was what, late 2000, early 2001 when I actually went there, but it had started, you know, in the late 90s, as a, you know, hip hop, R&B, and alternative rock promotion company, because both Rob and John Cohen, the founders of Cornerstone, that was their background. Given, you know, Rob was, you know, big on the hip hop, R and
Mm-hmm.
B radio promotion
Mm-hmm.
side, and John on the alternative side. So at that time, the company uh, focused on, you know, independent, you know, radio promotion, marketing, and at that time, really building out a strategic, you know, branding aspect of the company. Which, this is what, 20 years ago, a little more than that. Strategic marketing in music and entertainment definitely wasn't as common, you know, as it is now. Like, it's an everyday thing now, but back then, it was new territory. And, you know, in addition to the radio marketing and promotion, the corporate branding and promotion, you know, there were major, huge clients, Sprite, Xbox, Coca Cola, Boost Mobile, where a big part of what we did at Cornerstone, and while I was there, was actually, you know, bridging that gap between corporate marketing and music marketing, and
Mm.
coming up with, you know, creative campaigns utilizing music artists. And, you know, we created tour opportunities, we created branding opportunities, sponsorship opportunities, product placement opportunities, all of those things. And then within Cornerstone, the Fader magazine was also
Mm-hmm.
born. So Fader is
Mm.
a sister company to Cornerstone, And again, I think Fader being one of those groundbreaking, music, lifestyle, and culture magazines of all genres. And Fader's still around, and Cornerstone actually is still around. It's just on a different scale than what it was, And again, I think a lot of that was relative to just strategic branding, marketing, promotion.
That was part 1 of our conversation with Chris Atlas. All right, folks, that's our show. Tune in to Unglossy, Decoding Brand and Culture on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube, and follow us on Instagram at UnglossyPod to join the conversation. Until next time, I'm Tom Frank.
I'm Jeffrey Sledge.
Smicky! That was good.